Man, it just feels so good. Like my heart feels so light just sitting in that place of worship and honoring the Lord as he then turns and faces us and then shines his love and honor and adoration towards us. Man, it's just such a special place. So I just invite us all to continue with that same thought and mindset and heart as we continue in this wonderful evening of worship, because it's all worship. So I have the wonderful pleasure of inviting up the wonderful and amazing Mr. and Mrs. Bender. Thank you. I know. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us each and every Sunday evening. So we're blessed by you.
So formal.
I know.
Mr. and Mrs. Bender. Looking around for my parents.
I know, it's like the wedding announcement we never had. Greg and I eloped, by the way, in case you didn't know. And so we didn't ever have, like, the big dance or the big anything.
I was pretty happy with how that all worked out.
Right? It was awesome. I loved it. It was you and me. It was fabulous.
Hey, Jason, could you pop the lights on in the back?
You're really in love when you don't need the party. You just want the person.
Or Chrissy's got it. He did. I just realized this.
No.
He should not be moving.
He should not be. Hi, guys. So, yay. Yay. I just feel yay in my heart for what God is doing in our lives. I love the feedback that I'm getting from people on this series and what God's doing. And I love...
He's not doing much for the Diamondbacks this year, though.
He's not.
I attend one game, haven't ever paid attention to them all the 10 and a half years we've been here. Not much of a sports person, but I've been following them all season since we went to the one game.
Yeah.
And I thought, here's the... no. They actually were doing pretty well.
Okay.
But then they're giving it all away in September. And then they're going up against the Astros, and they actually won the first game. And I thought, here's the chance, because the Astros are really good. And then the Astros came back around and beat them like 10-2 or something.
Just hearing you talk professional sports.
I'm talking sports.
So
this is like
crazy.
never happened in our marriage.
Right now. I know this has never happened. Greg's like a player. He's not a spectator. So like to hear him talking sports is like, we're like, change is possible.
So there you go.
This is a miracle happening here. And did you have a wonderful trip last week on your motorcycle?
Yeah.
Yay! So Greg was
by
gone on
Capitol
his
Reef.
Motorcycle trip, and super good time. You and the Holy Spirit always have a nice time together.
No points there. No keeping score.
For what?
For any kind of sports. That was participation sport.
You are a participation sport. I'm sorry, we're back to the sports. I thought we were on motorcycles. But anywho, okay, so I got to track with you. Okay. So what I'm super curious to hear is maybe what God's been doing in your life this week. And for some of you, you may have taken the questions that we had last week and processed them more with the Lord. Some of you may be wondering, what were the questions? Even though I was here, I will pretend that's not true. Which is, becoming much more aware of what it was that you are feeling, honoring what it is that your response was, and letting God speak into that place. So does anybody want to share on any level what they feel like God has been doing in their life? And just, fantastic.
It's something kind of small, but it's kind of like it was kind of big to me in the moment. I don't know.
Excellent. I love the small but big.
Thank you. Very cool. I appreciate that. My grandparents are Jewish and all that, and it's Rosh Hashanah, the 10 days of awe, leading up to tomorrow, the 17th, and then rather the 18th will be Yom Kippur until the 19th. The Day of Atonement and all that. But anyways, so on my calendar on the 17th tomorrow, somewhere I saw 17 means victory. And I put that in there, I believe, for victory, especially today, in Jesus' name. And then I drew out for business, just an order that I sent out to Florida, and it came to 1,700 today when I wrote it out, too.
Oh.
And so I just thought that was cool, and I'm mailing it out tomorrow on the 17th. I don't know.
That's super fun. I love how God talks to you. God talks to us all so differently and so personally. Like, thankfully, we're not all the same person. So some of us, God really talks through numbers and through those kinds of moments. And so I just love that. I just celebrate that with you. So thanks for sharing.
I
so
appreciate
good.
That. Right
Yeah, yay. Anybody else have something they want to share? Ann does. Excellent.
All
I love that. I love that God is always doing something with you. I love your awareness of that. I love your intentionality with that. I love that you wake up every day and you are interested in what God wants to do with you that day. Like, that is a beautiful and amazing thing. So let's hear.
So I got to host my sister-in-law overnight last night, and she was struggling with something very, very personal. And it was easy on the one hand to pray with her because I just love praying, but I didn't feel like the prayer that I prayed was meeting her personal need. Like, she didn't, it was just too praying and not not her heart.
Not connecting with her.
Not connecting. And anyway, as I just, kind of wrapped that up and walked away, and I just was talking to the Lord, and I was like, Lord, what are you going to do about this? He goes, that's what you could have prayed. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Instead of like me with my agenda telling God all the good things that could be done, it was like just being there and saying, what are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
And just being in the moment with her in that. Anyway, it was just a really profound moment for me to realize that that God actually really likes those kinds of prayers.
Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. Well, I didn't clap on the last one, but do any of our students have a God moment, a moment where they felt like God was in their day at school or in their life, and they want to share God kind of encouraging them, helping them, speaking to them? Any moments? All right, anyone else who's an adult or student of life? Carrie, thanks.
Just really did appreciate last week. All these weeks have just been amazing. And then I did get the book finally and started going through it. And it's like, just the two together is just amazing. But yeah, the thing about our responses, I've really, this past week, the word has been pause for me. So like when someone, I have an interaction with someone and that kind of, whether it hurts or whether it makes me feel strange or whether it makes me feel happy, I'm asking, just what is that? And sometimes it's been nothing, it's just, that's just, but there's a lot of times there's things to go back. So it's that pause that I'm doing rather than immediately responding back in a negative way, and just kind of taking it back, and it gives me a breath versus feeling like aggressive, like I'm gonna go after this thing, which is so very helpful, to just go, okay, so what just happened there? What does this mean? And what am I gonna do about it? And so far there hasn't been a lot of, I want you to do this. It's just awareness so far, because I think the most important thing I've seen is awareness of it makes it so that you don't jump all over the other person or even yourself, because sometimes it's self mutilation. How did you, why did you respond that way? But instead, just this is just the way I responded. So so
let me take a
let's
moment.
see what that means.
It's really, really good. It's amazing we haven't learned to do that sooner.
No.
But
get caught up in chaos when you don't.
I'm super grateful that I'm learning it now.
Really, and now is the time.
Now's the time. Every day is that great opportunity to step into whole new ways of being more healthy and being more powerful. So good, Carrie. Thank you. All right. Anyone else before we? Yeah, Christy. What?
I just have a quick thing to share. I talked with Sharon Shade.
Yay!
2 days ago, and she lived down in Tucson, and she came to church here about 3 times. Well, I know for sure 3 times because she said 3 times, but she just wanted to share how much she loved you all and this place, and she really was, looking back, she wished that she would have actually just gotten in the car and driven up here, because she realized how special this place was because of the people that were in it. So she really just wanted to send her love and thanks to you all for inputting into her life, even for the few times that she was here. So
yeah, that's so great. Yay. Well, we are going to release our kids. So kids to nursery and kids to children's ministry. And I just want to honor and bless Christy, who has for now 2 years, coming up to 2 years, she and Dan have taken on the challenge, and then Christy has put action to that in wanting to raise our kids up to be magnificent human beings who know God's love, who are able to operate in God's perspective. And it is such a passion that she sacrifices to be not in this space with us almost every week, so that our kids could have an experience for themselves that makes sense for them. So I'm just so grateful for that. Jocelyn has also been spending time recently and in the children's ministry, and that's a much celebrated choice too. So she's been sewing into that. So kids, we are going to release you to be the magnificent kids that God made you to be powerful, to be strong, to be honoring, to be good, to be wise, to be loving. May you have a wonderful time. We'll see you back here in a few minutes. Last week, we talked about many things, but the only thing I'm going to review is that we talked about whether or not fear or love was ruling our heart. And oh yeah, we'll come back at the end maybe and do that. That's super cool. Yay, who worked on this?
Genevieve,
yay. Okay, so we'll talk about it when you come back, okay? So nice. Thanks, Greg, for thinking to pull it up. So we talked about whether or not, and many of us haven't become aware of whether or not fear or love is ruling in our heart, because we haven't really ever been given the permission or the thoughtfulness to kind of discern what's really been happening in our lives. And oftentimes we will judge ourselves and our reaction rather than allowing ourselves to consider why we're having the reaction that we're having. And I believe that that kind of behavior comes from the fact that many of us in very early childhood were never really allowed, not because anyone didn't want us to, but because really loving, wonderful parents didn't know how to allow us to own our own emotional responses. And so when you have not been allowed to own your own emotional response, you are then caught in someone else's assessment of it, and then you find yourself divorced from your own emotional experience, and it becomes a pattern of non-beingness, where you are unaware of, ashamed of, angry, or frustrated with your own emotional responses on a daily basis. Can anyone relate to just a tiny bit of that? So when we haven't owned and accepted our own emotional responses, we then become somewhat unaware of our emotional responses. And that's when somebody says, "What's going on with you?" And you honestly say, "I have no idea." Or you may only feel one emotion for every range of emotion. So for joy or for goodness, it might be kind of a nebulous feeling of happiness. And for a negative emotion, it may be one emotion, maybe anger, maybe fear. And so that's the one negative emotion that you feel, and you really have no range in the depth of your emotions and no awareness of the variety of emotions that you're feeling. And here's the only problem with this. The problem with having no connectedness and no understanding of our emotional responses to things is that we don't know ourselves very well. We have a difficult time understanding others very well, and we have no way to have intimacy. So when we are disconnected from our very selves, it is impossible for us to be connected with others. And then it's impossible for us to develop trust and communication. So today we're going to talk about trust and communication. Super fun, right? Yay! When we haven't been allowed to really honor our own responses to any given situation, what happens is we end up believing lies. We end up believing lies. Lies like, I don't deserve ... I don't deserve a loving relationship. I don't deserve financial health. I don't deserve someone who loves me. I don't deserve a God who cares about me. I don't deserve honor or respect for my work. I don't deserve to get paid for my work. What are some of the things that may have been floating around that are the I don'ts? Anybody have any? How about I don't have needs? So when somebody asks you, what do you need in this relationship? You have absolutely no ability to identify your own needs. That's a problem. Because somebody can't build trust with you and meet your needs if you don't know what any of them are. How many of you have been disconnected from your own needs? I have. I'm disconnected. I don't even know what I need. It's kind of like that fake thing on the HGTV shows, you know, I'll know it when I see it. If you just happen to become the thing that I need, then I'll know it if you do it. But it's very difficult to have intimacy if you are with someone who has no idea what their needs are, and if you yourself don't know what your needs are, and you're just hoping that you'll recognize it when you see it. How about I'm unworthy? Right? So when you have not, now this didn't come because you're such a crappy person. These things didn't happen because you are so terrible. These beliefs and these lies get lodged in our life usually before the age of 6. And then we live out the result of accepting these lies into our life, and that becomes what? A self-fulfilling prophecy. So most of the reasons why you have these negative feelings and an unattachment or an inability to get to know yourself is because of things that happened before you ever had the age of reason, before you ever made decisions about yourself, because you had unmet needs. I believe that's the reason why Jesus said, you must be born again. I don't think it's some crazy out there super spiritual thing. I think he's saying, most of you have not been raised right in this world system, and you need to be re-raised by a father who will introduce you to your true self, who will meet your needs, who will speak into your life and raise you right. In addition to wonderful parents who love you. I think that's that born again. You need to be born into the Spirit, into a place where you will not be orphaned, where you will not be judged, where other people's needs aren't more important than yours, where you are treasured, where you are honored, where you are sheltered, where you are loved, and you are utterly convinced that you are worthy and that you do deserve, and that your emotional responses aren't going to cause chaos to everyone else because they can't handle that anyone else has needs but them. How about this? If I share my needs, it will only create more disappointment. So I won't acknowledge my needs or share my needs because I'm pretty convinced you won't be able to meet them. How many of us do that? Right? Woo, super good, right? You got anything you want to comment on so far?
No, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what to write.
What to write.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. And you're wearing purple today, and I didn't even ask you. That's amazing.
Very purpley.
You're very purpley today. So, when we believe these lies at a very early age, what? Oh, something, they're talking to you. Go ahead, that's fine. When we believe these kinds of lies, it creates in our life an expectation for unmet needs. We expect our needs to not get met. And when you expect your needs to not get met, you become even more distant from your needs. And you become fatalistic in your hope that someone else might be able to meet them. And that wrecks intimacy. That wrecks relational connection. That wrecks our own ability to be trustworthy, and it wrecks somebody else's ability to be trustworthy with us. It is impossible for someone else to meet the needs that I am unable to articulate. They can be a super great person, but they cannot know for me what my needs are. So, Understanding and expressing our needs is an essential part to becoming a powerful person and having intimacy in our life, including intimacy with God. So I'm going to have you that. Understanding and expressing our needs.
You mean write this whole thing?
You don't have to write the whole thing, but this, understanding, expressing our needs is essential. Because it is. And when the Lord told me, here's what He's doing, and we can get on His page, which is He's growing us up into maturity. So He super cares about our unmet needs. And He super cares about us becoming intimate and powerful people. It is essential that we communicate these things because it is part of our relational exchange. In fact, I never really understood, if God already knows everything that I need, why do I even need to pray? Anybody ever been there with me? Like, why should I pray if He already knows? In fact, He knows better than I know what I really need, so why would I pray? I discovered over time there's so many different reasons to pray, but one of them is it helps us connect with what He's doing. It helps us connect with what we really want, and it's part of relational exchange. I wouldn't know that God was stepping in and meeting a need if I hadn't identified the need sometimes. So He wants us to become vulnerable in our own wanting, and He wants us to know that He's doing it. It's part of the relational intimacy and the building of trust, is that kind of dialogue and communication. There was a funny one. So I told Greg, I'm hoping this isn't okay. You're awesome in the story. It's too late now. It's already started. Sorry. I felt an okay, but you'll tell me later. I usually tell them the stories ahead of time, so I'm good, but I didn't do that. So I was pretty sure that I needed a minivan years ago, like 10 years ago now, is that it? How old is our minivan? Like 9, 10, 9, 8, anyway, however old it is.
8.
I was pretty sure that I needed a minivan. And so I went to my husband and I said, we need a minivan. And he was like, now again, we're talking about emotional needs usually and trust needs, but I'm just, this was the story that the Lord brought to my mind, so mine was a minivan. So just assume that the minivan represents bigger needs in your life in this story. Or don't, either way, it'll be fun. So I told, and he says, I don't think we need a minivan. I think we should still be driving our super cool Saab 4-door sports sedan that when you hit the gas, like you literally feel your buns go back in the seat, which is also very fun. But when you have 2 kids, you can't do play dates, you can't take anyone home, you don't have extra seating. We take long drives to Colorado.
Those are all positives, I think.
Right? This was not a win for you. And I didn't say.
You can't fit as much in the trunk. That's a positive.
So then I changed it from we need a minivan to I need a minivan. So see, I'm getting clear. Our family doesn't need it. I need it. So I started to adjust. I adjusted my thing. And Greg was like, the money, the this, the that, whatever. And so for several months, I felt super hurt and frustrated that he didn't understand my need for a minivan. So then I went over his head. And I went to the Lord and I said, I think I need a minivan. And it would make my life so much better. And you are my papa, and you care a lot about me. So if this is really something that you want to do, would you talk to my husband? Because I discovered a long time ago, trying to convince him of things, it doesn't typically work for us. So he really cares about what I want and need, but there's some things that people get set on things. Have you ever found that? I get set on things, he gets set on things, we'll both do it. So I went to the Lord and I said, this is what I want. Would you be willing to give me a minivan, Lord? Because I really, really want one. And 7 days later, after months and months of conversation and frustration, Greg comes to me and he says to me, after church today, I think we ought to go look at minivans. Really? Because I thought you were dead set against minivans. But I did not say that. What I said was, that's awesome. What changed your mind? And you said, I don't know. And I said, doesn't matter. Let's go. And like a week later, we had a minivan.
I don't know, because I'm one of those people that's not connected to my emotions or feelings at all. It's not very deep.
You're working on it. Yeah.
Something like that.
Or happily ignorant. So yeah, he didn't know why he changed his mind. But the Lord said, I have discovered, I go to my dad often for things in our marriage that I think I need, and then he figures that out with Greg. It's super awesome. it builds trust with us, but it also builds trust with he and I. If I didn't know that I needed that or wanted that, a van could have shown up in my life, but that doesn't really enhance the relationship. It just enhances my life. What we're going after specifically is intimacy and connection in relationship. So I sometimes bypass the stubbornness of people and I go straight to the Lord on all kinds of things. Not just Greg, but all kinds of people, family members, even with kids, and I go straight to the Lord and go, this is something that I think is supposed to happen. Can you speak to this? Can you do something? Right? You guys have experienced this. And then he does a thing and that person doesn't even know how it shifted. And that's the beauty of the relationship with the Heavenly Father. And that is the beauty that we do get to have with other people as well. But it requires a tremendous amount of what? Vulnerability. Because once you express a need, the cat's out of the bag. You can be rejected, you can be scrutinized, you can be judged, and you can be refused. So it requires vulnerability to express your needs, because it may not be met. But here's the thing. In a healthy, powerful relationship, it is nobody's responsibility to know what your needs are except for you. And I know that sounds really, really simple, but how many of us have been wanting someone else to know what we need and meet that need without us having to express it? That's how I go through my life, right? Thank you. I go through my life wanting other people to be healthier with me than I am with them. Come on, tell me that isn't true. We all want, everyone, our bosses, our work situation, our friendships, our family dynamics, we all want everyone to be healthier with us than we are with them. We want them to meet our needs before we ever have to express them. Because by the time we have to express them, what has happened? Disappointment, typically. What if we changed disappointment to the word opportunity? What if we stopped looking at every unmet need not as a failure for someone else, but as an opportunity for us to become intimate with ourselves and intimate with someone else? What if we just took failure off of the plate altogether and we went, every time I find that I have an unmet need, it is an opportunity for me to get to know myself and to become more intimate with others and more intimate with God. Right? That can shift so many things. So I'm going to have you put this up. The only person who is responsible, and remember our definition of responsible is what? Response-able. So you are the only one who can be made able to know what your needs are. It is nobody else's job but you. That also means it is not your job to figure out what other people's needs are. Oh, can you say codependent? It is not your job to figure out what other people's needs are to meet them. And if you take it on as your job, you will create an unhealthy dynamic. Can you, with the Holy Spirit, joyfully meet needs of all kinds of people that aren't articulated? Yes, you can. But when you take it on as your job, you are now doing that out of a need to self-protect because you don't want the repercussions of that person having an unmet need around you. Right? That's the reality of it. You don't like when they have unmet needs, so you are really trying to protect yourself, but you are short-circuiting relational health and intimacy because that person isn't growing up and being vulnerable, connecting with themselves, and now connecting with you. You are taking on all of the health of the relationship on yourself, and guess what? The only person involved in that is you. It's not actually a relationship anymore. It is you now managing, controlling, and manipulating people and situations to meet your own needs because you can't handle the consequences of somebody else having a need. So stop and deal with the consequences and go, you know what? Nobody's going to die here because I let someone else become responsible for their own needs, and I ask them to get in touch with their needs and communicate them. So we've been growing in this area hugely, right? Yay, so good. Okay, no, I'm not going to tell a story. Good. Okay, so that also means I'm not responsible for assigning motives to your actions. If I'm not here to meet your unspoken needs, I am also not here to determine what motives caused your behavior. Woo! How many of us do that all the time? I do that all the time. I do it all the time. I determine why somebody did the thing that they did without asking them and letting them determine for themselves why they did the thing. And what have I done again? I have short-circuited healthy and I have short-circuited intimacy. I am the only one in this relationship with myself.
So I have a question for you.
Yes. Yeah.
When you arrived at Darby's volleyball practice this morning
Yes.
and didn't have the seats,
Yes.
the stadium seats in
Yes.
the van,
Yeah.
what reason did you think that I took them out of the car?
Why did I think you took them out of the
Yes,
car?
this is what I want to know.
So I arrived,
What motive?
I keep these stadium seats in the van so that when I go sit at these long practices, I don't like kill my back. And I just now keep them in the van because I'm so forgetful and I haven't become able to remember each time, so I now keep them in. And we were cleaning out the van the other day, and when I opened it up, everything was clean, including all the sand that was out from our trip, and the seats were gone. So what did I assume? I assumed that you were cleaning out the van, which is what we were all doing, and that you were trying to help us all and didn't realize that I kept them in there permanently. But I did call.
And I explained to her that I was trying to make
question.
her day really bad by removing them from the car. That was my motive.
So Greg and I have found a new way of communicating that has super helped us. Because in the past, I will say, man, this hurt me or frustrated me that blah, blah, blah. Stadium seats are nothing, but you know what I mean? Like, whatever the situation is. And then Greg feels terrible. And then that's where it ends. Well, how healthy is that? But that's the result of never being allowed to fail. And so the relationship goes no farther. If you're not able to express a frustration with something with someone else because it becomes all about them, that's woundedness. So we've stepped into a new level of health. This happened years ago, but we're walking in a even better level of health, which is Greg's now able to handle me communicating things I need, things I want. And so he called me, Abraham was actually on the phone, about the stadium seats. So Greg called me back and he said, so honey, I knew that you were super frustrated earlier in the day, and I decided to make your day even worse by removing the seats so that you also could totally destroy your back. Just want you to know, love you, you're welcome. And this is his way of going, I'm super sorry, and of course I had no intention whatsoever of making your day worse, which I feel super loved by, and you're so funny, and I love that. Thank you.
It's the little things.
It's the little things. It's the back pain. So, so I don't know how you're going to find that kind of communication with the different people that are in your life, but learning how to connect with each other is super, super key. When you decide to assess or judge somebody else's motives in the situation, this has now become not about them, this has become about you. You have now articulated your issue with your own hurt and pain. When you cannot stop yourself from assessing somebody else's motives or somebody else's behavior, it has now become about your own hurt and your own issues. So when you find yourself doing that, key, note to self, oh Lord, what are you wanting to tell me? Because I can't stop fixating on them. I can't stop assigning blame. So now I have the opportunity to figure out what wound in my life is this triggering. It's so good, right? Because these are the barriers that have kept us from a relational intimacy. A judgment statement also says this. Are you ready for this? I need you to agree with me about what's wrong with you before I'm willing to be vulnerable with you and talk about my own need. A judgment statement says, I need you to agree with me about what's wrong with you before I am willing to be vulnerable about my own need in this situation. Yeah.
Can I interject with an example? I spoke to somebody yesterday just to they said, thank you. I said, if it was basically I needed an apology from somebody, asking them for an apology. They said, will you forgive me? Or just basically they said, will or are you going to accept my apology if I give you one? Yeah, so it was one of those,
That's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, that happened yesterday.
Yeah, before I get vulnerable, I need to know what your predetermined response is going to be.
Right.
There you go, perfect example. Woo, perfect example. So, yeah, right, it's so great, I love that. We now know that our heart is being led by fear when we need to control the outcomes before being vulnerable. So then we get to go back to the Lord and go, I need your healthy love to cast out fear. In fact, it was just at Tribe this last week, the Lord wanted to talk to me about perfection. And we always have that verse, perfect love casts out all fear. I love what the Lord was teaching me this week. And he goes, I want you to go back and look up perfection, because all of us have the definition of perfection in the English language as what? Perfect. Without flaw, flawless, without mistake, without error. But both words in the Greek and the Hebrew, teleos is one of them, and tamen is the other one, Greek and Hebrew. Those are the words that we translate into perfection, and neither one of them mean without error. They actually mean, do you know? This is my stump Dan. Yay, I love this. This is like the third time ever. He always knows everything. Greek and Hebrew, he's like my walking dictionary. It means healthy, complete, lacking nothing. Not flawless, lacking, healthy and complete. So when God is talking about perfection, he's actually talking about healthy and whole. And when he's talking about perfect love casts out all fear, he's saying healthy love casts out fear. When he talks about be holy even as I am holy, when he's talking about perfection and coming into perfection, he's talking about healthy. That just shifts it just enough to help make it like accessible. Because God, I believe, isn't so concerned about our love. I think he's concerned about our health. Because out of healthiness is able to be